In this video, I'm going to run through the top 5 most common questions that Macy's ask in their interviews, and I'm going to help you plan brilliant answers that will get you a job working at Macy's. So let's start by looking at a question that is guaranteed to come up, and that is simply, what times can you work at Macy's? Now, you may think that this is actually a really easy question, but it's not. A lot of people do very badly. So I'm going to show you how you can answer this question in a way that avoids the traps that people fall into and scores really highly. So fundamentally, there is 4 things that you need to think about. Firstly, you want to show flexibility, and you do that by offering to work a wide range of times. And I'm going to give you a list of certain times that if you mention, it gets Macy's much more interested in hiring you and shows off that flexibility that they are looking for. This question is also a good opportunity to bring in reliability and show that you are a reliable person. And you can do this by either showing a track record of reliability in your previous jobs, or by mentioning reliability as something that is important to you, that's one of your personal values, and by committing to being on time to all of your shifts. You also need to show a can-do attitude. They are much more interested in hiring people that say yes to a wide range of times and volunteer to work at lots of different times than someone who immediately gives a list of all of the times that they can't work. And in fact, a lot of people do that in this question. They say, I can't work this time, I can't work this time. However, I can work all of these other times. And you've just immediately gave them a list of reasons not to hire you. So don't volunteer any times that you can't work, because that's just giving them a reason not to hire you. The chances are, if you list a wide range of times, those times that you would prefer not to work are probably not even going to come up in the interview, so it won't be used against you. Fundamentally, you have to show commitment. If you list lots of times you can't work and give reasons why you can't work those times, that may cause them to question your commitment to the job and comes across very negatively, so definitely avoid it. The other thing you've got to do to be really successful in this question is to list times that Macy's are really, really interested in. So specifically, you want to mention public holidays. Macy's is much busier during public holidays, and they do a lot of their sales then, especially around Christmas. So mentioning those times is going to get them interested. Weekends are another important time for the business. Again, people are off work, so the stores are going to be busier. Evenings, when people have finished work, is another key shopping time where it's slightly harder to get staffing because people would like to work 9 to 5 and have the evenings to themselves, but the stores are still open, typically until 7. So you want to be volunteering those times if you're happy to do that. Chances are you'll never be asked to work at short notice because usually the staffing structure is quite good and they've planned the correct level of staffing, but volunteer. Say that you're happy to work at short notice. It's going to be a thing that's going to come across really positively. Also volunteer to work overtime. Say you're happy to work overtime. You may never be asked to work overtime, but you can mention it anyway, and it's going to come across really positively. And the last thing that you can mention, which is really helpful, is just to say that you are happy to work to meet Macy's needs, that you will work around the business's needs. And that shows the ultimate level of flexibility, that you're happy to work whenever the company needs people to work. And if you focus on saying yes to as much as possible and don't deliberately bring up times that you can't work, you will score highly on this question, especially if you mention as many of those times as possible. So now let's move on and look at another really key question, which is, what do you know about Macy's? Obviously, you should never go to an interview without knowing the company and doing your research. So I'm going to show you how to answer this question and give you the facts that you need to know about Macy's to impress at your interview. With practice and planning, you can absolutely smash this question and make a great impression. So to ace this question, you need to do 3 things. Cover the obvious facts about the company, then show that you have really done your research, and then to really impress, what you want to do is teach the interviewer something new to show that you have really done absolutely outstanding research. So let's run through the facts about Macy's that you need to know to answer this question. Firstly, mention that Macy's is a department store company. That means it sells lots of different products in various departments. So you're looking at things such as clothing, furniture, footwear, jewelry, and cosmetics. Originally, the company was founded as R.H. Macy & Co. and was named after the founder. And it was also founded in 1858. That is a number that you should memorize. The founder was Roland Hussey Macy, and the Macy's star comes from a tattoo that he got as a teenager while he was working on a Nantucket whaling ship. The company is notable for having the world's largest department store, which is its flagship store located in Herald Square in New York. The company is also famous for owning the Bloomingdale's department stores and the luxury beauty retailer Bluemercury. Macy's is also the sponsor of the famous New York Thanksgiving Day Parade, and they also sponsor the 4th of July fireworks display. Additionally, you should take the time to understand Macy's loyalty programs and credit card offerings, which is currently based around the Star Rewards program. Make sure that you understand all loyalty programs, including how points are earned and how they can be spent. Another word that you want to use in your interview is omni-channel, which describes Macy's mission to produce a seamless shopping experience across multiple formats such as brick and mortar stores and Macys.com. Lastly, it is worth mentioning that Macy's prides itself on its diversity initiatives and was ranked as one of the top 50 best companies for diversity. To further improve your understanding of Macy's, a great resource is the company's investor relations website, their investor presentations, which I would encourage you to read, and their Form 10K, all of which you can easily find online. And inside these documents, you will find senior management's opinions about what the company should be doing and what their priorities for moving the business forward are. So now that we have studied the company's facts, what we need to do now is look at some questions around working with customers and your personal attributes. And the first question that you need to be prepared for is, how would you handle an angry complaint from a customer? To answer this question, you want to get in 4 key ideas. So firstly, whenever you're dealing with any angry or upset customer, you're always going to use de-escalation. And you want to use that word in your interview. De-escalation means calming everything down and getting the situation under control. So you're not going to shout back and argue with the customer. You're going to be calming the situation down and getting it under control. So absolutely use the word de-escalation. When you're dealing with a complaint, customers want to be listened to. So show that you are listening and show that you really care about their complaint, that you're really interested in finding out what the problem is and that you want to do something about it. An angry customer will get a lot angrier if they don't think you're listening to them. They will shout a lot louder, trust me. So show that you are listening. When you're going through this interaction with the customer, you are always focusing on finding the solution. So in your interview, talk about being solutions focused. That when a customer makes a complaint, you want to solve their complaint. And you're going to, of course, do that within the company's policy. So emphasize that as well, that you are going to follow the company's policies. You're not going to issue refunds where they're not due or just hand them cash out the till, because that's not following the company's policies. So you will be finding a solution within Macy's customer policies. And fundamentally, your goal in this interaction is to turn a negative into a positive. Something's went wrong, the customer's got a complaint, but your job is to make that customer see that Macy's solves its problems. So yes, something's went wrong, but I'm now here to help. And so the customer is hopefully going to leave the store thinking, yeah, Macy's screwed up on that, but they were absolutely amazing and they sorted it all out for us. And so you could end up with a positive review even after Macy's perhaps got something wrong. So the 4 things to recap: de-escalation, show you're listening, focus on finding the solution, and mention at the end that you're going to turn that negative customer experience into a positive customer experience. And if you do that, you're going to score highly on this question. So let's move on and look at the question around your major strengths and weaknesses. Now we're going to start by looking at strengths. And when you're asked about your strengths, here is how you should approach that. So start by thinking of a substantive strength. That is a really big, really important strength that actually makes a big difference. And I'll give you some ideas of some strengths that you could mention. You need to show some examples of when you've used that strength, and to make it even stronger, if you can supply some evidence like a reference, a qualification, that goes a really long way in proving that you actually really do have this strength. And fundamentally, you want a strength that will encourage Macy's to hire you. This is your opportunity to show off a skill that is going to be a good reason why they should hire you. And when you answer this question, this is the way that you can structure your answer. So a strength that I have developed is, say what your strength is, and I'll give you some inspiration in a second. Then say, I can demonstrate this strength by, so give an example of a time where you've used that strength and provide some evidence, ideally a reference from a previous manager. Try and organize one. That's a really powerful thing to use in an interview, or a qualification that you have that backs it up. And then do some work for them. Explain why this strength will actually help their business by saying, this strength will enhance Macy's business because. So once you've picked your strength, think about how that strength makes Macy's business better. So some ideas that you could use is, if you've got previous customer service experience, that is a great attribute. So if you've successfully worked in customer service, use that as your example and get a reference from a manager in your previous job that backs that up. If you speak more than one language, that's a great attribute in a department store, because you're going to have lots of customers that speak lots of different languages coming into the store, and you can be the go-to person for that language. If you're meticulous, that's a generally good skill to have. Reliable is very important. If you have lots of knowledge about a particular product area, really talk about that, because that could be the product area that you are put into because your strength matches with that. If you're friendly, that is a nice, simple strength that is really useful in customer service. So now that we've looked at the strength, let's move on and look at your biggest weakness. So when you're asked about your biggest weakness, you have to make sure that you don't just fake it. So saying something like, I'm a total perfectionist in everything I do, that's not good enough. That is an absolute opt-out and will count very negatively. They don't want to hear that. What they do want to hear is that you're going to sort out your weakness, that your weakness is not a big deal because you're fixing it. And lastly, it has to be something that Macy's doesn't care about. So if you were to say something like, I am known for my offensive body odor, you have just lost the whole interview. It has to be something that's actually not that important. And I'll give you some ideas of things that you could use depending on what job you're applying for. And when you answer this question, simple sentence that you're going to use is, a weakness that I am aware of is, say what the weakness is, but don't talk about the weakness very much. Focus on what you're going to do to overcome this weakness. So to overcome this weakness, I am, and then say what you're going to do and what you've already done and how this weakness can go away in the next few years while you're working at Macy's. And also explain why it's not going to have that much of an impact on your work at Macy's. So some ideas that you could use depending on your role that work quite well is, maths can be a good one if you're applying for a non-management role, because the till will do the maths for you, and any maths that you're having to do is very simple anyway. Delegation, if you're not in management, is a good one. Spelling, again, if you're not in management, it's not going to make any difference. And working in Macy's, you're very unlikely to have to do any public speaking to hundreds of people. So if you get very embarrassed speaking to groups bigger than 20, then that's not a problem. It's fine as a weakness. So public speaking is quite a good go-to weakness for this sort of job. So now that we've handled the weakness question, we need to look at another question that comes up that can trip people up quite badly, which is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This interview question is so common that you should always prepare for it. A lot of people do badly on this question because they're shocked to hear it and they haven't ever thought about it. So take some time and think about it. Be prepared for this because it comes up more often than you would think. And really, to be successful, you want to start by being credible. If you say something that's ridiculous and way beyond what anybody else tends to achieve, they will not take you seriously. And it undermines your whole interview by making you come across as someone that is detached from reality. You have to have a plan. You have to have some idea of what you're doing in 5 years to be able to answer this question. And when you're applying for a job at Macy's, your 5-year plan needs to involve Macy's. If your 5-year plan has nothing to do with Macy's, it's going to count against you. So some things you can mention is moving up one level. So look at the job you're applying for. What is one level up? That is always going to be considered credible that someone could move one level in 5 years, and it's a reasonable aspiration. You could say that you just want to be outstanding at my job, that you're not interested in moving up. That's fine. Talk about how you're going to be absolutely amazing at your current job. You're going to be a product expert. The management is going to look to you as someone that can mentor new staff, and you're interested in taking on some extra responsibility, but within your current role. You can also say how you're going to gain skills. You're going to be better at customer service, for example. You're going to be more knowledgeable about the product. You're going to be earning the right to move up. You're not going to expect to move up in 5 years. That 5 years is going to be used to gain skills that are going to make you better at your job. Some traps to avoid is anything that's ridiculous. That will just go down really badly. Be conscious of who's interviewing you. If you are talking about being in their job or being above their job, that is not a great thing to talk about. If you're talking about jumping above the people that are interviewing you within 5 years, that is not going to go down very well. And fundamentally, anything that is not relevant to Macy's, just don't bring it up. If it's not going to make Macy's business better, don't include it in your answer because it's not relevant. It's not going to help you. And at worst, it could make your interview a lot worse. If you mention quitting Macy's, that is a disaster. Do not use your interview to talk about what you're going to do after you leave the company or announce during your interview that you plan to leave. A lot of people do that, and it goes down very, very negatively. You're basically saying that you're going to work there for a short time, and then they're going to have to redo all of these interviews all over again and waste their time. So just don't mention it. It's not going to help you. Right, now that we've done this question, we're going to move on to a bonus, which is looking at some great questions that you can ask Macy's. So start by absolutely making sure that you ask what the next steps are. Show that you're really interested in getting this job and you care about the outcome. So ask them what happens next. You should also show that you're really enthusiastic for starting and that you care about doing a good job. So ask them what you can do now to be really well prepared for starting. Show an interest in your colleagues by asking to know more about the team. And a good question that you can ask, you have to be quite sensitive in how you ask it and judge who your interviewer is and whether this would be a good question, but you can use this to your advantage, is ask what characteristics do highly effective Macy's employees have? That way, they will tell you what they are looking for and it will give you an opportunity to sum up at the end of the interview how you meet the things that they are looking for and remind them of your strongest answers from your interview. And lastly, one question you have to make up on the day. You have to show that you're listening to what they are saying, and you can do that by asking a question that references something that's come up earlier in the interview. And if you do that, it shows that you're switched on and that you're actually listening to what the interviewer is telling you. And that does come across very positively. So hopefully this video has been very helpful to you. I wish you the best of luck in your Macy's interview, and I hope that you get the job. And finally, thank you very much for watching.